Okay, we almost forgot to record. My name is Jessica Johnson. I'm here with Carol Welsh, 5 things to know about apprenticing in Tanzania. She was just speaking about talking to the president of City of Hope, which was an aid organization, orphanage that she spoke with before coming over to Tanzania. And you were just saying you were able to give your scope of your training so that you could tell them and show them that you can actually serve maybe some other need with the maternal care population. If you want to go from there, Carol, please.
Right, that I could do a lot of work up at the clinic. I'd be valuable, but it was to be up to them, and so it wasn't their day, and they liked me right away. And it was intense. I was the first quote missionary back to Tanzania after the pandemic, which made it a really unique situation for me
Okay, start
and for
telling
the
us. So
people
you
there.
landed. How long did you intend to go and how long did you stay?
I intended to go for about 10 weeks and I stayed about 8 weeks.
Okay. And you intended to just be of service in any way they needed, knowing you
Pretty
could be
much.
called into midwifery or medical support, but
Right.
you were
There's
really
no
open.
midwifery there. It's just
Okay.
it's a building that makes it a clinic is the people that are there that come there.
Who staffs it? Who staffs the
So
clinic?
there's a man, Dr. Adams, and his assistant, Boheme. And then there's a girl that works the clinic that um, cashes their prescriptions, for the antibiotics or whatever. And it's a little closet full of the drugs that Tanzania gives them.
Okay.
I mean, it's such a different government too. So it was everything I asked it to be. It was a good shock treatment for me. We definitely did what I wanted it to do was restart.
Okay. Let's chat real quick because I remember when you were doing this and you came back after your first time, one of the biggest things you learned in this experience was that they had a need for a birth stool. Okay, so and why was that? And I want to hear all about the birth stool. Tell us about this birth
Okay.
stool, what you brought over and why.
It's a sensitive subject, but I'm going to condense it. Within a day, really the first birth that I was attended there with those guys ended up being fatal. And it was because of a technique that they hadn't caught up to them yet, that had been kind of strongly discouraged by the World Health Organization. And so only because, and what the most astounding thing to me was the lack of suggestion of positioning for a mother. The only suggestion was this torturous looking table of exam table and stirrups. And so just the fact that that was the only suggestion made it the only position. And the whole complication that the baby didn't survive from was preventable by getting her up and out of that position and getting her moving around. But
Okay.
and preventable by not doing the extreme fundal pressure, but it never happened again, only because he was made aware that, wow, I had no idea. So I drew a picture while we were talking to the people involved with that situation, and I drew a picture of a Dubai stool, just saying we need something else there. And the next morning there was a metal Dubai stool at the gate of the
Really,
just like that, and it was almost amazing the amount of women's lives that were changed over that one fatality. And so when I went back the second time, there was 2 more clinics that now had that birth stool, that they made 2 more for the other 2 clinics because the births had doubled, more than doubled at that birth center just because of that birth stool. And then we also made a long piece of material of their own, and tied knots in it and threw it over the door and showed them how they could hang on it that way, and just showed them all kinds of cool stuff. And they were so receptive. Dr. Adams and Boheme and the whole staff was overwhelmingly receptive. And I would like to say that it was just trying to maintain neutrality as far as, look, it's not you, it's the procedure, and this is what happened, and now this is why it's not done. This is what we do here. And I left them with it's a real easy reading maternity books, Heart and Hands and Human Labor and Birth. And the next time I went, then Breach for that, and Christine Laurier was a huge encouragement for me. Talking to her daily, just staying focused because, and we're going to talk further about just the difference in the women and how it came to me. Now I understand why the CPM has challenged this approach to getting legal. Coming back with those numbers anyway, yeah, go ahead.
No, let's go there. Let's go right there.
Yeah.
Let's go right into what you're talking about there. Talk about that.
Right.
Why
So
the
I was
CPM
looking through
highlights
my journal and I was reading where I was commenting to myself, there's, they don't labor the same. The women are just, they're the best of the world. They're class act health. They live on the equator. Their diets are very, very basic nutrition. If anything, they just need more of it. They walk all day long. Their bodies are perfect. Their labors are swift, and it would be hard not to. Where did you go? There you are. It'd be hard to put that against what we have here. It's still birth. Don't get me wrong. I think in some way it needs to count towards something, because the expense and time and just visually being there and attending this, even just for contrast's sake,
But
because
what you're saying,
there's nothing dietary related there.
okay, that's what I wanted to talk more about. You're telling me that one of the reasons, like if we talk about the 5 things, one of the points here is your population interaction is not going to be the same overseas as it is in America. Because
Right.
in America, we run into gestational diabetes, thyroid disorders, hypertension, and you are not seeing them as much in the population in Tanzania. Is it because it's not happening as much, or they're not screening as much, do you think?
They are not having the conditions that are necessary to create that problem.
Okay, because they're moving, not
Because they walk
sedentary.
up to 10 miles a day, 20 miles a day. I mean, these women are walking 6 miles to come to the clinic to get shots and, have the 2 or 3 prenatals that they're going to have. And then they walk back there to have the baby. They're in outstanding health. I mean,
Wow.
they're just so lean, and they don't have temperature changes. They live right on the equator, 12 hours. It's just they're just the smoothest, healthiest population I've ever been around. And I've been around a lot, but boy, they top it. I mean, they're happy, their teeth are white, shiny, and I mean, maybe some skin, but even touching their bellies. Is it her 7th or her 1st or her 12th? You literally can't tell. They don't have stretch marks, the tautness, and you just don't have that consistency of people in America.
Can you hear me, Carol?
I can, yes.
Okay. We all got a little, sorry, I feel like today we're having issues.
I just stand and stare at myself, drives me nuts. Let's stare at some other movement. But we can talk. I don't know. She said she can't hear anything, so.
Would you like an omelet?
Sure, I'd love an omelet. I have a personal chef, Lisa Villa. Well, is it me? Am I doing something wrong? Oh, yikes. Well, I don't even know if anybody can hear me.
I don't know what happened,
I
Carol.
can hear you.
Jessica disappeared. So
Oh, hi.
you're now in charge of everything, and I think it's still recording. So now
Okay. So I can read from the journal that I kept, if that helps.
I don't know if Jessica's going to try to come back in or if she just lost signal. I don't know what happened, but you are all on your own.
Well, can I look at you while I talk? I gotta look at a pretty face, and yours is very pretty. I'm gonna read from my journal, okay? From when I was there. That thought came to me. Every day. Okay, so I guess we did a bunch of verses. Okay. Arriving at the clinic is always fun as everyone greets me as if it's my first time there. Always cheerful, smiling. They're clean, bright, white, and straight teeth. Everyone's teeth are so white. Oh, there was a woman, he's come see the new baby. Is anybody there yet? She speaks a different dialect of Swahili. And so even there was a language barrier for Dr. Adams and Boheme. They asked me to fetch one of the hats and the new receiving blankets that the Duke University students had brought for the new mothers. It's hard to read them as they're very stoic women. I made my way to the prenatal. There were at least 10 women waiting. Boheme had all the information in the government books. I can't read anything, so I felt like I was in kindergarten or when I'm entering the ledger. Ah, there you are.
Going. I'm listening.
Okay. There is no saying no to Boheme. He lets me do everything. Let's see. I didn't want to appear as if I'm not grateful. The women's weight and their height, the blood pressures given tests. And then I listened for the heart rate and measure the babies, following the mothers in the exam room. And another thing was the level of their embarrassment that I remembered. When they'd cover their eyes, when they expose their bellies to me, no matter what I seemed to do to make them feel comfortable, they are just naturally uncomfortable. Even talking to them about their pregnancies is embarrassing. One woman would not answer our questions. She was just too embarrassed to be there, and she was really young. When I sit and listen to Boheme with simple things like STDs, birth control, preparation for the birth, these women stare at him and their birth, stare at the women, and beautiful glistening teeth, sparkle in their eyes. I don't know if it's just the white woman in me, but I have a hard time telling these women apart. Talk to women, ask, because they're just also beautiful. I mean, and he asked, anyways, that was blah, blah. Let's see.
So what I'm going to do, just as we keep going, is I'm going to turn my video off, Carol, just to help keep the quality of this going, but I'm going to keep talking, okay, and chatting. Okay. So when we talk about these 5 things to know about apprenticeship in Tanzania, one, the population is not representative of the CPM client population.
Right, of the clientele you're going to be working with. I mean,
it's not at all who you're going to be working with, because
no.
number 2, they do not have the same disposition or expression of diseases and things that we see in the United States that do complicate and fall into that low, medium, higher risk stratification that we have around the safety of community birth. And you're saying it's for a lot of reasons, although you are saying, I did hear you say they do need more nutrition. Do you see malnourishment in the mothers and the babies in Tanzania in particular?
I did not see malnourishment.
I
did not. I did not see malnourishment. I just, they really ate what they needed. They had what they needed. There wasn't any signs of malnutrition.
Okay. Now, I remember when we had chatted before, one of the things that stood out to me that you brought up was that you could not tell if somebody was coming in, if it was their first or second baby or their 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th.
Yeah, for
Talk
sure.
more about that, because in America, I can definitely tell.
It's because of how much walking they do, and just none of their food is adulterated. And like I said, they don't have weather changes that create different viruses just by that. Their environment is pretty perfect.
Pretty perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, but not to deny what you can be, coming back with that behind you really helps you to appreciate what's happening here. I mean, and no way am I saying that it is not a great way to go over there and just get on, because when you come back, you're just like, wow, it's only gonna, for me, could only be a good experience.
Now, let's talk about the childbirth experience as you witnessed it. I know you spoke about culturally there being different boundaries around exposure of body and learning some cultural like respect and understanding in that. But I do remember you talking about how they do not express pain and strength the same way you've seen across even the diverse amount of people you've served in the United States. Can you say more to that?
Right. But just their expression of pain, and you see it also in the Amish communities are similar, but I've learned and understood better even something as important as that first hour bonding or skin to skin. It can be traumatic for somebody.
I want you to go into depth on this, actually, because this is really important. This is a good cultural advocacy moment. Can you speak more about this process and what you learned?
Yeah, I would love that. Coming in with an agenda and the agenda being the skin to skin and all this is super important, but as normal, we are not being circumcised, and all these women are circumcised at 13 years old. In fact, the circumcision week was happening the first week I was there as well, and that was a bit wild too. So, and they're married off young. It's high trafficking, of children there. Their vaginas are not a pleasure point, and so when they're giving birth, it's another onslaught to their vagina. And so when you hand them this squiggly, bloody baby that just came out of their vagina, they do not want it right then. And they need a minute to disconnect that experience from their vaginas. So the way to do that is to just, if you put the baby on them, the women would turn to look the other way and kind of kick their hands like, without saying, I don't want it right now. And, if they don't, they don't. And so then just clean it up and hand it to them. And she wears the baby for 3 years. There's not a bonding issue. It's a separation from how their privacy and, the use of their vaginas are not for herself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I hear, like, what I think I hear you saying is that actually to honor the significance of bonding in this culture, honoring the space immediately.
Right.
For the
and the response from the mother was immediate. Yeah. When I didn't, and at this point we were using the birth stool from every single birth, it seemed. Instead of putting it on the leg, I just put it on the mat that I brought with me and that they kept. I just put the baby on the mat and used one of the congas. And then the mother would just, stand up and drop that placenta with no problem. It was so swift. Everything was so swift and without being touched.
Okay.
It was a bit, so cut and clamp. And then she goes in her room. She puts her clothes back on and sits in this horrible bed. And then you give her baby back to her in 5 minutes and it doesn't leave her arms. She's into it. They're great mothers, and it's just really helping her, learning her boundaries, not the ones I've been, studied past exams and everything. Now I know, and now I have to not know that because it's not appropriate.
I really appreciate
going with the mom, and then in the end, you're there to be to serve the woman. And, birth has no boundaries. It doesn't know language. It knows I and touch, feel, eye communication, vibes.
I had a midwife call and consult about a similar experience with a client here in the United States, who was not interested in receiving their baby. They weren't interested right after birth. And we had a discussion about how to support that and how that actually can be very normal, right? That in some cultures, but also some bodies and some births,
it's better that way because they separate the experience is not what they want to remember. They want to remember that they have this new baby and that because it's, you can understand. I mean, and they didn't tear, but their circumcisions were clitorectomies.
Okay.
So they,
And that, did you see the comment? You just, that you perfectly timed that in the chat. There was just a question that asked, because of the circumcision, did you have to cut episiotomies or help with stretching on clients
never.
often? Never. Wonderful to hear that.
I mean, I'm telling you, it was, I mean, it was to
Well,
behold.
you know, and you brought up that direct fundal pressure was resulting in increased fetal demise unnecessarily. And so when that was rectified in practice,
Right.
a birth stool was introduced. Now, the birth stool is a really beautiful introduction. Do you believe that the doctors and you, I know in this culture, they do, now, can you affirm, do they carry weight on their heads in the Tanzanian?
Oh, right. We were talking about that. Yeah, the increased incidence in asynclitism, which is, I hate that word.
Asynclitism.
It
Yep.
always, you know, it's pronounced, you know, and the women, when they get there, and it was so cool because Dr. Adams, after that first birth that we did together where that demise occurred, it was like the bond, the glue then from them, like he listened. And that was one thing that Virginia, the president, said that he had told her, I've never trusted somebody in the clinic like I trusted Carol. And I was, wow, far out, you know, that's cool, you know, so let's keep trucking. Now I was like, these women, it's hardcore for them. Every time they come in, they want to lay down. They're done. They want to just lay down on that exam table and just, but if now he's like, we're not doing that. And we didn't, right away, our asynclitism was reduced just because we had them moving and squatting instead of laying down and papping their legs, being perfectly silent.
I'm so glad to hear
They,
that.
you know, they did not want to get up and walk up and down the stairs, but then they were glad. And really, the increase in births there was, word travels fast in those communities.
I bet it does. I bet it does. Absolutely. So in general, can you tell me with hemorrhage, are you seeing Pitocin use routine?
And I never saw them use it.
Never. Okay. Because there was not access or not need.
No, that was the one thing they did have.
Okay. And Pitocin just didn't have to be brought out.
Yeah, it was in the back way. We had to go get it. It wasn't in the little cement room that was the labor delivery room.
So
and there was
can
no
I ask
resuscitation equipment.
Oh.
There was, you know, they reused this old bulb syringe that Duke had left there. They made all their gauze pads with big, huge roll of gauze, and we just would flip it in a book, cut it on the sides, and fold them in fours, and make 500 or 600 of them.
Wow.
At a time. And
IVs?
Yeah, we used IVs a lot. They used IVs cured everything.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of malaria. I sent you a picture of the top 10. I thought that would look cool. What was it? You know, none of them are dietary related. They're environmental or communicable or, you know, like, what was it? Malaria, asthma, you know.
Yeah, so the list you sent. So Carol's referring to a picture that was a list of the top 10 things that they were seeing inside the medical site.
In that little medical clinic, yeah.
And it was things that were communicable. It was things that were of the landscape. It was not dietary. It was not.
And it was really funny, like on a small scale, just like relation to doctors getting fancy equipment and everything. Like these doctors, I brought, diabetes was not on that list. And so, but I brought there was already, when I went through their closet, they already had like 3 or 4 of these glucose testers. And so he had one, and now he poked everybody. So now, who knows who had diabetes? Now
he's screening.
Technically, but I think he was just using it till he was tired of it. That's why there were 4 of them sitting in the back drawer. Do you know what I mean? Because he was using it because it was fun and it was a toy. and nobody had anything anyway, and they didn't keep charts. He had no records of it, no records. All the people came with a piece of paper that the government gives them, or I can't, maybe we get a bunch that had a bunch of them blank. So yeah, they would start it, and they carried that piece of paper in a little plastic sleeve.
Okay, so
Their
the
whole
client,
life, that was their medical record.
okay, so it wasn't just a pregnancy record, it was their medical record, like a
Well,
citizen's
I
document.
mean, I didn't see their medical records. Everything was new for that. And they would bring that little piece of paper, but they might have had one piece of paper for each kid. And they got, so I don't know who gave them that piece of paper, whether we did or how it was, but we didn't keep any, like, there was no records on anybody. We filled
Okay.
in to send stuff, like we filled in ledgers, state ledgers, you know, that the government would come and they had to report to the government their stats and stuff like that. But they didn't have any personal files.
Wow. Can you tell me, so did you learn any tips or tricks in the field over there that you brought back into practice here?
One thing that really stood out to me that I'll continue to do and always believed in was movement and birth, like Cynthia, Kaylee, and like Christina. I mean, that is the biggest thing, is to keep the mother moving. And that was what was stalling up the already perfect birthers in that country, because it had been a suggested position from the, you know, being colonized, is that position would have never have come to them to lay on that table, put their feet up in the air, had we not brought some white American or somebody put that table in there.
Mm-hmm.
They would have had a birth stool. So the fact that I was introducing something that was not really being a reintroduction, you know what I mean? Like righting the wrong.
Yeah,
I did
absolutely.
feel I did feel like I was meant to be there. I'd made such an amazing change. I was unprepared for just what it had done to my own personal soul. And
Mm.
you know, and needing that to happen before I could do the CPM. I wasn't going over there to get numbers. I wasn't going over there to do anything other than, you know, to be changed in some way. And boy, it happened. It was good. I went back the next year just to follow up, and it was different, but it was good. It was still happening.
That's lovely. That's lovely. So if you have CPMs who are looking for international experience, any words of wisdom you'd like to provide them?
Yeah. If you're bringing reading material over to them, or posters, I brought a bunch of posters from Childbirth Graphics, and then I showed the pictures to Christina, and she goes, "What is wrong with this picture right here?" And I'm looking at it, and all the posters were of white babies, and I'm in Africa, and I was like, "Oh man." It's to the core. Like I'm the epitome of myself, but none. They never thought it, because all of their stuff is, you know, kind of colonized information anyways. They never gave it a second thought. It was that I didn't think that far ahead. It was really something that your cultural, if you're just going, I mean, be keenly aware that you're an American, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you may be a different, not standard, but you're still an American. And, you know, learning as much about the language where you're going is huge. I studied as much as I could and listened to everything I could to just be able to show them intent of learning the language. And, you know, and the bonding, it really was a good lesson.
Did you learn any life-saving measures that
I learned how to sew a thumb.
Did you? Tell us.
Yeah, I went up to the clinic, and I walked past this room, and there's just blood everywhere, but I didn't hear any noise. So I kind of turned back around. He goes, "Come in here and help me." And this child had cut his thumb off with a machete, and he wasn't crying at all. And we're sewing this top part of this thumb, and it was done. We did the job.
Wow. Okay. So we have a question in here. And the question is, what is the process of signing up with and working with is an organization like this as a CPM? And to back up real quick, you had said that you had actually knew you had a client that had an orphanage that was working over there that you made connection with initially to go over, and then you let them know about your skills. And then you plus your skills and them knowing that helped pretty much put you in the medical clinic to help out. And you never left.
Right. It
right?
really only because I delivered her sister's baby. I mean, they knew me from when I was a very busy, prominent midwife in Virginia.
Yeah.
So she already knew, just knew that I didn't jump into the CPM thing. So 20 years later, I'm inquiring of the orphanage. So it wasn't like I didn't have a long-term relationship with her. I called her, I kind of cold called her and applied to go there.
Let me ask you, Carol, if we had people who are listening now and they were interested in connecting specifically with where you worked to help in that region or any other region supportively, could we put you in contact with them? Would you like?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's not, if I had to go back, I don't know that I'd go back to that specific place again.
Okay.
But there is plenty of places in that region. And then since I've been there, I've been asked to come to these other little spots. But I told you how I got out of the country not having the CPM. Want me to tell that story?
Oh, please tell me, because you did not have the CPM. No, please keep going.
No, and it was right. So I was one of the first white people to cross into the border from Tanzania into Kenya. And so they were gonna, I had money, I was ready, but so at the border, they went through all my stuff and got all my contraband I was trying to get over the border with,
Like your medications?
Well, stuff I bought legally there, and so it was fine, they took it, but I also had some bulbs and seeds, and they let me keep those, but that's okay. That's not the point. What happened was whoever's doing all this, putting me through the process, asked me for my, where I was, what I was doing. I told him I was working at a clinic. He goes, where are my credentials? And I, didn't have my CPM. And he goes, do you have your credentials? So I pulled out my wallet and I flipped through it, and my YMCA card had a heart on it. And I handed him my YMCA card. Then I was looking at my library card, getting ready to hand that to him. And I don't know, just stall him so I could think what to do about this situation. And he swiped it and it beeped and he handed it back to me.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, Roger that.
Okay, so I can say right now that in the chat, we did get a great response. It says, look into the Wombs of the World program. They do have a Tanzania program, and Draw Near Doula Support Services is going in January.
Oh,
so
far out. See, that's what I mean. I think what I did was just like bold, and I really wouldn't recommend it the way I did it. I don't know, but so I would love to go over again, and I think that experience cannot be done here, and you do see real birth. I mean, and numbers and just gorgeous, beautiful situations that are going to resolve, and there's not immediate cesareans. Your plan B is not cesarean.
Yeah, your plan B is your plan A. Get the baby.
Yeah, right. Is get the baby out. And so, but it's cool. I mean, it was awesome. I'd like to serve somewhere where there are a group of midwives going over together. I think that is the way to go. It was way too lonely. It was very harsh. It was incredibly raw. But I have that bring it on personality and get myself in trouble. But I did good that time.
I can appreciate that there would be some support there with other midwives, how it can be lonely without that in general, right? We know even the Lancet says that, right? For midwifery to survive, we need to have skilled teams of a sufficient size so that we don't burn out in these situations, because babies are always coming. I'm excited to find out about more programs in particular.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'd like to go if there's some more, whenever I get done doing what I'm doing here with Martina.
Yeah.
I want to go everywhere and do everything. So I'm just a glutton. So, or
okay.
pick me and then I'm.
Well, I love it. Any other questions? And it looks like we have another comment here that Wombs of the World goes to Ecuador, South Africa, and Mexico, as well as Tanzania. So for anybody listening later or watching, do look at Wombs of the World. That sounds fantastic. Anything else you'd like to leave us with today, Carol?
No, I'll just ramble.
I love it. Actually, I did have one more question. I know that you are a skilled herbalist. And so when you were seeing no postpartum hemorrhage or very low postpartum hemorrhage rate, was there anything in the diet specifically that you think kept hemorrhage rates low?
I think that the amount of walking they do is solving all their problems, to be honest with you.
Okay.
A-
You
And
don't think, was there, I was thinking root vegetables, minerals, any staple in a
I mean,
diet that you
drink
think was
high,
truly
they
supportive?
don't drink a ton of water. That's good because they're, I mean, their skin is a testament to the amount of minerals they're getting, right? Their muscle tone,
Okay.
all that's mineral based. I did turn them on to, they did have an increased rate of UTIs from squatting over those latrines. And I was like, oh my goodness, you guys didn't know about this here corn silk. And this here corn silk, listen to me. And showed them how to use corn silk for it. So now they're harvesting like they should have known that already. They probably did. They just got lost in the translation, but corn silk, he sends me pictures of them gathering a pound of it. And he says it goes through a good pound or two a month.
Of corn silk to help reduce UTI. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Okay, if anybody else has any other questions, drop them in the chat before we finish up here. Wantina, always so great to see you. I'm grateful to meet you, Teonia and Sherry. I'm glad you ladies joined us today.
Really,
So
thank you.
yeah, drop any last questions. And draw near doula support too. I don't know your name, but welcome. I'll do a little shameless plug. We've got Strasburg, Virginia, end of September. We're going to be doing uterine exploration, manual removal of clots, IVs and phlebotomy, and full newborn. So if you are a student or a CPM who needs Weaver's skill sign off or intense instruction in any of those, come see us. It'll be me and Kim Haynes, Strasburg, Virginia. You can check out the event on our website. And also come to Kona with us, January 15th through the 19th, 2026. We are doing 15 CEUs in Kona, Hawaii. Carol, you should look at it too. Come to Kona. Wantina, Kona.
Yeah, Wantina, let's make it happen.
Let's all go, right? So those are what's happening now. Oh, thank you. Nice to meet you, Christine, for Draw Near Doula Supports. Thanks for being here. Next week, we are going to have, I got to look. Actually, we'll just wait for next week to be next week because I think, you know what we have next week? We have preventing loss of identity in motherhood. And so there's going to be a whole talk about how to not lose yourself inside motherhood next week. Jen Hoadley, my co-partner here, my partner here, she's going to give a whole unit on that. And I'm so excited for that. So come back and watch next week, listen. And then the replay will be up on our Substack. If you're not subscribed, it's all free. Newsletter's always free. And our replays go out immediately to your inbox on Thursday. So if you want to always be able to catch what we're covering, just sign up for our Substack. All right.
You are really good at this, Jessica.
But I have to remember to try to keep it short so I don't just trip on
But
it.
I mean, you're a good host. You did a great job.
Oh, thank you, darling. Okay. Any other things, questions? Oh, yeah, I'm going to pop back on now that it's right at the end. Thank you so much.
Or do I wait?
Huh?
Am I done? Are we done?
Oh, yeah, we can be done if there's no more questions. It's been great chatting with everybody. We'll see everybody next week. And all right. Goodbye, everyone.
It was nice talking.
You too, Carol. I'm so glad to see you. See you soon.
Okay. Now, how do you hang it up?